and welcome to the weekend edition of the Nightly Nuge. And you know what, Ted? I had kind of a crazy year with some health issues, but better late than never. Check this picture out right here. Last couple of days of the turkey season, I was finally able to get out and success. So I had a great turkey hunt last weekend. This is a great time of year. Turkey season is winding down. We're all starting to think about big game hunting. We're all starting to think about deer. But most importantly, I think this is the time of year when we really reflect back on what we've done and where we're going from a hunting standpoint. I know my life would be far less from the quality meter if it wasn't for hunting and my hunting friends. I know the answer to this, Ted, but just how important is the hunting lifestyle to you? Contrasted that back with what we talked about yesterday, your wild fire-breathing tours and then the hunting. How does it mesh?
Born in 1948 within the effervescence of the great Fred Bear in the wilds of Michigan, where we'd go north every year. I was on my dad's back in deer camp in the fall of 1949, and I was 10 months old. So I've never missed a deer season in my life. And I've always promoted that. At first, when I started becoming known with the Amboy Dukes, actually with the Lourdes before the Amboy Dukes in 1964, Amboy Dukes started in 65, the new radio, the hit radio was now starting to move towards album-oriented radio, so I started doing a lot of interviews, and people asked me where I get all my energy and all the fire and all the passion and all the piss and vinegar, and they were looking for some type of pharmaceutical answer. And of course, I avoided pharmaceuticals and the stupidity of drugs and alcohol and tobacco and stupid food. And so my energy came from the spirit of the wild. I have promoted it and celebrated when people started questioning me and then started attacking me for murdering innocent animals because their animal life was based on a cartoon named Bambi. Well, I saw how feeble, how soulless, how dishonest, how rude, how irresponsible that attitude was. So even though I was a mushy-brained dirtbag that graduated from the American anti-education system and didn't know jack squat, my instincts told me to celebrate conservation and to push back with not just science and fact and real-world nature, but with an ever-increasing squadron of middle fingers on fire so that I kept my responses to these attacks buoyant and fun. And I got the listeners of these radio stations that would attack me for being a hunter and carrying a gun. I got the listening audience to go, well, wait, Nugent makes more sense than the guy attacking him. I think I'll support Nugent. And even though that fluxed over the years, overall, I have never missed an opportunity in any public setting, media globally, to promote and celebrate hands-on conservation as we balance the herds and flocks and schools of fish to keep wildlife habitat in prime, healthy condition, which is the ultimate source of quality of life, quality of air, soil, and water that is derivative of conservation, hands-on monitoring of the environment to maximize the wildlife conditions. People have become hunters and fishermen and trappers and gun owners and gun store owners and archery shop owners because they see that everything I say makes perfect sense. So on this nightly Nuge, as we celebrate the great outdoors and the spirit of the wild, 34 years, Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild, which remains unbelievable queen of the forest. 34 years, the top-rated hunting show ever, not just on public television before the outdoor networks, but now on Pursuit Channel. Find Pursuit Channel, people. Somehow get Pursuit Channel on your TV apparatus and watch Shemaine's Queen of the Forest segments. We are the #1 hunting show ever because we don't produce anything. We push the record button and we document real hunting, real resource stewardship, real conservation, the joys of the mystical flight of the arrow, and how when you put to work all your sacred gifts from God, you can manage your projectile, marksmanship, archery, and your life, as goes your reverence for God's gifts to manage the path of your arrow, goes the path of your life. Do not misunderstand that or underestimate that. If you don't spend maximum time in the great outdoors, your soul, your spirit, your sacred temple will never be as healthy as it could be based on your celebrating your responsible role in God's miraculous creation. That's the hunting lifestyle.
And you know what, Ted, you mentioned Shemaine and the Queen of the Forest. Back in the day, hunting camp was only for men. Mama Bear never was allowed in hunting camp, and Baby Bear wasn't allowed to come until he can smoke cigars and drink whiskey. And so now we've kind of seen the heirs of that way, if you will, when so many kids are growing up in a single parent household and that single parent happens to be the mom. Final word, Ted, what's your take on how important the role women will take leading hunting into the next generation?
Well, the inner city kids across this country, primarily in Democrat-run jurisdictions, are shooting, stabbing, carjacking, raping, bludgeoning, assaulting like animals. Not one of those nasty people had a hunting license in their pocket. The connection with God's miracle creation will humble you and guide you. There's Happy Sadie and Coco humbling and guiding me right now. The more time you spend in the outdoors, the more fulfilled you will be in fulfilling clear and present responsibilities to your monitoring the condition of nature and making sure that you leave it better than when you found it. And the role of maternity, of mothers, has come to the forefront when Shemaine and I started the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids charity, a 501c3 nonprofit, strictly volunteer charity. 33 years now, Ted Nugent Camp for Kids. Go to tednugent.com and make a donation. We save children's lives. And a lot of our kids at our camp charity, Keith, come from single-parent households, mostly single-mother households that are desperate to find something fulfilling, meaningful, and positive in their sons and daughters' lives, and they bring their children to my children's charity, the Ted Nugent Camp for Kids, and teary-eyed, they thank Shemaine and I because all of a sudden the light goes off in their heads and they fall in love with the control of the mystical flight of the arrow, the marksmanship at the gun range, the marksmanship with the slingshots, the joys of fishing and the natural diet of hunting and fishing. It will cleanse the soul. Do not underestimate it. Yes, it's recreation because it recreates our spirit. And yes, it's an economic firestorm. Trillions of dollars have been generated into economies because every time you hunt, fish, and trap, you're going to buy supplies and sporting goods and licenses and food and lodging and restaurants and gas and travel, maybe a cabin, maybe a plot of land, maybe some food plots, stuff. You're going to hire a taxidermist. You're going to go to the butcher. You're going to buy seasoning. You're going to get a grill. The money generated in the outdoor lifestyle, it's in the top 1% of revenue generating for conservation. So I cannot celebrate enough. Thank you for making Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild the #1 hunting show ever for 33 years, now on Pursuit Channel. Get Pursuit Channel. Shemaine's Queen of the Forest segments is worth it. If I wasn't her husband, I would find Ted Nugent's Spirit of the Wild and I would watch the Queen of the Forest segment. She is absolutely the goddess, the Little Miss Dangerous of backstraps, and we celebrate it and we thank everybody for all these years of support.
Well, Ted, I'm going to go and turn on the Pursuit Channel because there's a lot of good shows on there, including Spirit of the Wild. And next week, we're going to get to the Durham report, Ted, because in the Durham report, they admit that Hillary Clinton and her campaign started the Russia hoax.
Yep.
The FBI knew it. The CIA knew it. President Obama, Vice President Biden, FBI Director Comey, Clapper, Brennan, they were all in on it. They all pushed it. But believe it or not, in spite of all that, the final conclusion is, they're all going to get away with it, Ted. We'll talk about that next week right here on the Nightly Nuge.
Celebrate Memorial Day and Veterans Day and Independence Day every day, America. Godspeed.